Yeah, you're welcome to another edition of the Full Gospel of Christ and the Church. This platform promotes at least three things. Number one, it's showcasing the reality of God's personality and His existence. We are sure there is God, a supreme being called God, and He really exists. And number two is showcasing the true gospel of Christ to the world. The full gospel of Christ to the world. And on the third reason is showcasing the unchangeable power and the authority given to the Church of God for spreading the gospel both in healings and in the control of the supernatural. And I will at this juncture advise you that you watch out for spiritual codes for physical manifestation. Spiritual codes for physical manifestation. Viewers, today we are going to be discussing the topic I consider, or I title, the signature of God. I said the signature of God. Now I want you to please note some things. These outreach messages is never an attack on science or philosophy. I take that again. This message, this outreach message is never an attack either on philosophy or science or anything that has to do with these two fields of life, but a distinct message calling for clarity between nature and the invisible power operative behind the scene. There is an invisible power operating behind the scene, and that is what we are trying to put to the knowledge of people, that there is a power in existence that controls the affairs of the universe, and that is what we are projecting. I am Saint Jos Israel Adegboyega, the voice of his oracle. This is the voice that must be heard, the voice that must be adhered to, the voice that must declare the judgment of God upon this erring generation. This is the voice championing a revolutionary move, channeling the course of life towards a better end, and teaching men to fulfill their destinies in life via the word of faith and holiness. Like I said earlier, this teaching, please note, all these video clips and messages are available on all social media networks. On YouTube, you have Jos Israel Outreaches. Jos Israel Outreaches. On Facebook, you have Jos Israel Outreach. On Facebook, you have Jos Israel Outreach. On TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, all other social networks. Also note, with regards to relationship affairs, Jos Israel Nigeria Limited creates a platform called Pioneers Marriage Market. Pioneers Marriage Market. It's a platform for matchmaking people of opposite sex together, for marital union only. For marital union only. Get the details from Jos Israel Nigeria Limited. Just search Jos Israel Nigeria Limited on Facebook and you can get the detail. And back to our topic of discussion, the signature of God. What is signature? I say, what is signature? And for the purpose of this message, signature are visible evidence, marks, signs that summarizes. So I said, what is signature? Asking the question, what is signature? And I said, for the purpose of these things we are doing, signatures are visible evidence. They are marks. They are signs that summarizes the reality of a power or force behind any given event. Signature are visible evidence, marks, signs that summarizes the reality of a power or force behind any given event. Now I want you to consider the edifice behind me. Look at this edifice. you see that wonderful edifice? It's evidence of someone's labor of many years. Seeing this shows that someone has been here, someone has labored to invest in what we have just seen. And in the same very vein, God's signatures are distinct happenings, events, situations, and occurrences that are beyond human comprehension. They are undeniable and can only be interpreted as the hand or voice of God making a distinct statement. Now, having said that, against scientific and philosophical assertions that there is no God, as portrayed in the very first edition of this theme, God's signature are not only visible, they are completely beyond human comprehension. An explanation both of human and to scientific illustration, yet they are crystal clear before us. Without an iota of doubt, philosophy as well as science have limitations outside God. In fact, finding out and explaining the numerous diversity of God's signature is what gives meaning and credence to science and philosophy today. That means attempt to find out the reality of God and his existence is what gives credence, that gives meaning to science and philosophy today. And this is the core job of science and philosophy, is to find out the signature of God. I said the core jobs of science and philosophy is to unfold the signature of God for debate. Now, to start with, look at life, look at death, and look at blood. They are exclusive prerogative of God's signature upon man. In other words, the scientific wonders in healthcare, only lives and thrives within these three boundaries that is made by God. In other words, science can do so many wonders and has indeed done so many wonders in the world. But I tell you, science is yet to produce life. Science is yet to have effect over death. And science is yet to produce blood. In other words, science can only thrive within these three regions. It cannot produce it, but it can make use of it. Look at the scientific landslide and the achievement, including the ability to replace any part of human body. That's how wonderful science has been. It can replace any part of human body. But it's amazing that science cannot produce any of these ones. It is clearly the signature of God. Thus, he that made life, created the flesh, and infuses blood into it is itching to talk to you directly. He created and controls the day and the night, within which framework science can only work. He created light and sight, within which framework science can only cure, but cannot give sight to the blind. He who created and controls pregnancy and birth, within which framework science can only work. He seals and opens up the wombs for it to become fruitful, within which framework science can only work. He brought forth babies from a wombless woman, and bouncing baby boy against menopause from a 69-year-old woman who has never conceived. He restored and grow lost tooth in an adult. By his short limbs shoot out and grow to meet the other normal limb on the spot. Building bridges across the oceans are scientific wonders, but parting the sea for men to walk on dry ground in the midst of the sea is prerogative of God. Making the lame to walk again on real legs or the blind to see are beyond scientific discovery. Science can determine the direction of the wind, but it is God who created and controls the wind. By scientific aid, men could communicate across the globe, but it is God who gives ear to the hearers. By scientific aid, men could transact businesses across the globe, but it is God who puts profit in businesses and gives profit and wealth to nations. Science may produce all the security gadgets, but except the Lord watches over the city, the labor in vain that watch it. Except God builds a life, vain is the labor of teachers and their teaching techniques. Hear this, there are so many circumstances of life that science incursions and medical interventions have no meaningful influence, but only prayers, which is the spiritual weapon of warfare, can handle those to resolve issues. For instance, science has no influence over powers whatsoever. Hear this, there are so many circumstances of life that scientific incursions and medical interventions have no meaningful influence over whatsoever, but only prayers, which is the spiritual weapon of warfare, that can handle to resolve those issues. For instance, science has no influence or powers whatsoever over spiritual realm, of darknesses, of the evil world, talk less of having any visible solution to attack it. Spirituality is very real and undeniable, yet scientific knowledge has no incursion into it. Only God controls that phase of life. O ye men, turn here and listen attentively to God as He speaks meaning to your life, now and direct. God is the anchor of every profession. He is the lawyer's advocacy. He is the doctor's cure and care. He is the scientist's knowledge and discoveries. He is the tailor's measuring tape, scissors, and sewing machine. He is the carpenter's hammer and nail. The same God is the soldier's gun and the protective element. God is the businessman's profit and wealth. He is the sick healer and deliverer, the love giver and the family builder. Consider these things that science did not and cannot put in place, but only God created them for science to make use of. Number one, science did not and cannot create life. Science did not and cannot create blood. The number of hair on human head is beyond scientific counting. Facial resemblance of child to parent is not scientific making. The dissimilarity in human fingerprints all over the world, even with over 8 billion people population all over the world, is beyond science. The dissimilarity in DNA of paternity is beyond scientific incursion. The world and the universe controls and operation, the world and the universe control has been in operation long before the invent or the advent of science. What are we trying to say? All these are clear signatures that there is a supreme being behind everything we see on the surface of the earth today. On this note, and many more things time will not permit us to take, it is pure insanity on the part of anyone to say there is no God. It is only the fool that says in his heart, there is no God. Hear the word of the Lord, for I speak as the oracle of the Most High God, and I declare into your life the healing power of God in the mighty name of Jesus. I release the auction of grace upon you, that from this day, that which is beyond man will be done in your life in the mighty name of Jesus. And like I've always said, this And I speak to you as the oracle of the Most High God. You know, the full gospel of Christ and the church comes in 3 parts: the word, the prayer, and the healing session. And I speak in the prayer now as the oracle of the Most High God. And I decree and declare into your life that your life begin to have meaning in the mighty name of Jesus. I put that signature of God upon you, that from this day it will be evident that the hand of the Lord is upon you in the name of Jesus. And now to the healing session, I decree by the name of the Lord, I come forth as the healing minister, the oracle of the Most High God, the handmaid of his power, and I decree that healing comes your way in the mighty name of Jesus. I release that power of healing upon you to take care of every aspect of your life that human ability cannot take care of. I release you as the signature of God at this moment in the name of Jesus. I am Saint Jos Israel Adeboyega, aka the pioneer, the voice of his oracle, the voice that must be heard, the voice that must be adhered to, the voice that must declare the judgment of God upon an erring generation. This is the voice that is championing a revolutionary move, channeling the course of life towards a better end, and teaching men to fulfill their destiny via the word of faith and holiness. We'll meet again on part 2 of the signature of God. Watch out for all our videos, our clips, our messages on YouTube, on Facebook. Shalom greetings to you from Zion, the city of God. Catch.